He does not drive it often. It sits in the garage most weekends, covered with a cotton cloth, parked on a piece of old carpet he cut himself. He checks the oil when nothing is wrong. He adjusts the mirrors even when no one will be sitting inside. Neighbors have watched him do this for 15 years. His wife stopped asking questions about it around year 3. There is no logical reason for the behavior, and that is exactly the point. Most people assume old car lovers are chasing status. A vintage machine parked in the driveway signals taste, wealth, or eccentricity. But that explanation is too shallow and too convenient. Status seekers buy new things. They buy things that announce themselves. People who love old cars are doing something entirely different. They are not buying an object. They are trying to recover a feeling that modern life has quietly erased. To understand this, you have to go back before the car itself. Think about what a car represented in the decades when most of these enthusiasts were children. It was not simply transportation. It was the first machine a child encountered that had a personality. A Ford Galaxy from 1965 did not just move, it rumbled. The steering wheel vibrated faintly under your palms. The chrome on the dashboard caught the afternoon sun in a specific way that a plastic panel never could. When the engine turned over, the sound filled the garage like something alive had just woken up. Children who grew up around these machines were not passengers. They were witnesses to something mechanical and real. That sensory imprinting is the foundation of everything that follows. Psychology has a term for early sensory experiences that become emotionally permanent. They are called formative anchors. They are not memories exactly, they are templates. When a child repeatedly encounters a specific combination of sight, sound, smell, and texture during a period of emotional openness, that combination becomes indexed in the brain as safe, meaningful, and permanent. The garage smell of oil and rubber, the specific weight of a chrome door handle, the exact sound a V8 engine makes when it idles in a quiet neighborhood on a Sunday morning. These things do not just remind people of the past, they actually return them to it physiologically. This is why an old car can produce a calm that nothing else replicates. But there is a second layer that most people miss entirely. The era in which many of these cars were manufactured was an era of visible effort. You could see how things worked. You could open the hood of a 1968 Chevrolet Camaro and trace every system with your eyes. The carburetor sat in plain view. The belts and pulleys moved in patterns you could follow. A 10-year-old with enough curiosity could understand the basic logic of the machine just by looking at it. That transparency was not just mechanical, it was psychological. The world made sense because the things in it made sense. Compare that to now. Modern vehicles are sealed systems. Sensors communicate with processors through software layers that even trained mechanics cannot always access without a computer interface. The average person who opens the hood of a car manufactured in the last decade sees a plastic cover and some labeled caps. The machine has become a black box. And when machines become black boxes, people begin to feel like passive users rather than active participants in their own lives. Old car lovers are in part resisting that passivity. There is a study in psychology about perceived control and anxiety. When people believe they can understand and influence their environment, their baseline anxiety decreases significantly. When they believe they cannot, it rises, even when nothing externally threatening is present. The modern world has systematically removed the visible logic from most of the systems people depend on. Financial markets, social media algorithms, supply chains, digital interfaces, these are all black boxes now. Most adults navigate life surrounded by forces they cannot see, understand, or meaningfully influence. An old car is the opposite of that. When a man spends a Saturday afternoon adjusting the timing on a 1972 Plymouth Duster, he is not just working on a car. He is inhabiting a version of the world where effort and outcome are directly connected, where the problem has a location, where fixing something is actually possible. That psychological experience is rare now. It is so rare that people will spend enormous amounts of money and time to recreate it. This is the thing the car itself is not about. There is also a social dimension that rarely gets discussed. The culture that surrounded these cars when they were new was a culture of shared public space. Drive-in theaters where people watched films from inside their vehicles. Diners with parking lots designed to keep you visible to the street. Car shows that were really neighborhood gatherings with an excuse attached. Drag strips on Friday nights where people came not just to race, but to be seen being part of something. The car was a ticket to physical community. It placed you in proximity to other people in a specific and socially organized way. That culture no longer exists in the same form. What replaced it was not nothing, but what replaced it was virtual. Connection became mediated. Presence became optional. The spontaneous gathering in a parking lot, the conversation that starts because two people notice the same engine sound, the unplanned social encounter that happens because two humans are physically in the same place at the same time. These things have become structurally rare. Old car culture preserves a ghost of that social architecture. Car meets are not really about cars. They are about what cars used to make possible. Now, here's what people misunderstand most about this attachment. It is usually described as nostalgia, and nostalgia gets treated as a weakness, a retreat from the present, an inability to cope with change, a soft emotional failure dressed up as appreciation for craftsmanship. That framing is wrong, and the research supports why it is wrong. Nostalgia is not a backward orientation. Studies from the University of Southampton showed that people who engage in nostalgic recall do not become passive or withdrawn. They become more socially connected, more optimistic about the future, and more grounded in a sense of personal continuity. Nostalgia functions as a psychological bridge. It reminds people who they are by reminding them where they came from. It stabilizes identity under conditions of change and uncertainty. And the modern world produces an extraordinary amount of change and uncertainty. The person who carefully polishes a 1969 Pontiac GTO on a Saturday morning is not refusing to move forward. He is building the psychological infrastructure that makes moving forward bearable. He is touching something permanent in a world where almost nothing stays fixed. The car does not change. The way the door sounds when it closes does not change. The way the engine responds to cold air does not change. In a world where platforms are redesigned every 6 months, where jobs shift with market conditions, where relationships are mediated through screens that filter and distort, that constancy is not trivial. It is necessary. There is one more thing worth saying. These machines were built during a period when the people who made them believed the objects would last. Assembly line workers in Detroit in 1964 were not building disposable goods. They were building things they expected to see in their neighborhoods for decades. That intention is embedded in the materials. Steel body panels that rust honestly and predictably rather than failing invisibly. Engines with tolerances that tighten as they warm up, not degrade as they age. The car carries the psychology of its makers, people who built for permanence because permanence was still considered possible. When someone restores one of these machines, they are not just preserving metal, they are preserving a worldview, the belief that a well-made thing should endure, that effort produces something worth keeping, that the time you put into an object converts into something real. The car in the covered garage is not a hobby. It is not a status symbol. It is not even really a car anymore. It is the last version of the world where things were built to last, and where the person taking care of them still believes that they should.